Hello everyone, very good morning to all the students. Let's begin today's lecture of digital communication. I hope my voice is properly audible.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for response. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So um, we begin today's lecture with just an idea about different type of pulse analog modulation and pulse digital modulation, and in the upcoming lectures we will go through majorly all these types of analog and digital pulse analog and digital modulation techniques. Okay, so PCM we have seen till last lecture, and only a part of it is remaining, which is the encoding part, and we'll also look the delta modulation. We will also look at PWM, PPM, and PAM in the upcoming lecture. So be ready for all this. Is my voice properly audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we will also see, just we will definitely go in very detail of this pulse analog modulation, that is the pulse amplitude modulation, pulse width modulation, and the pulse position modulation. Okay, so this is our analog signal, as you can see, and pulse amplitude modulation, as you can see, it is represented by these pulses occurring at regular intervals like this. In pulse width modulation, this is written PDM, this is also known as pulse duration modulation. So D stands for duration, or width also we can say. Popularly it is known as pulse width modulation. So here you can see the width of the pulse is varying as per the instantaneous value of the signal. So the maximum amplitude wherever your analog signal has, you have the maximum pulse duration width of the modulated signal, and least where you have the minimum value, like here. Okay. Similarly, in pulse position modulation, we will see all those these in very detail, and with the block level implementation. So here you can see wherever a transition is happening, there you have pulses. Okay, and PCM though we have already started to go through it. So let us ask a few questions from the people. Nandan, can you listen? Mr. Nandan? Vedant? Kashyap? I hope you guys are present. Devdutt Thakkar? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, then please, students, the name which I am calling, please respond. Jay Hirani?
Yes, sir.
Jay, can you tell us what is aliasing? Jay, can you listen?
Yes, sir.
Huh. Do you know what is aliasing?
Uh,
You do not remember?
no, sir.
Okay, let me ask Jeel Wachani. Jimmy Travia. See, a lot of students, they are not responding. Manushi. Lot of students not responding. Pragya. Smith. Smith Kotak. Vidhi Patel. Please respond even if you do not remember what is aliasing. Please respond those who are present, because since names are appearing in this attendees list. Otherwise, what I will do, whatever names I will call, if they do not respond, I may put absent. Vrand Chaudhary.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Vrand, can you tell what is aliasing? Have you ever heard of aliasing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, in past 1 or 2 lectures, है ना? So can you tell what is aliasing?
Sir, while we sampling various signals, they are like indistinguishable.
Okay. Under what circumstances, Vrand?
सर वो देखना पड़ेगा.
Okay. Anyhow, you have tried. Very good. And Viraj Kapadia. Okay. So there is another aspect with regards to aliasing, and like last 1 or 2 second lecture, I have told you with the help of example of a low frequency signal and a high frequency signal like this, and how inappropriate sampling can lead to aliasing effect, where you have single samples representing both low and high frequency, and majority of information is lost for high frequency signal. It is, if you look at the other way around, suppose you have a signal, suppose you have a band limited signal like this, okay, and there is some impact of high frequency noise, or there is some interference from high signal, high frequency signal. So what will happen when you will sample this high frequency signal would also appear as a low frequency, so its component is getting added into the sampling process of the low frequency signal, right? And our aim is never to get that noise signal, right? We will not keep our sampling rate as per our high frequency signal, which is in our case for this particular example, it is a noise to us, right? We will always keep our sampling rate fs greater than or equal to twice of fm, where fm is your maximum frequency component which is present in your signal, right? Signal of interest. So how we can get rid of such situation. So both ways it is there. In this case, we are getting loss for information about high frequency signal, and in this case, unwanted signal, those all the samples they are getting reflected inside the sampling of low frequency. So aliasing is not good, you know, and it leads to distortion. So what we can avoid is, for these particular cases, we can use a low pass filter, which is anti-aliasing filter. It is a simple low pass filter, right, which will attenuate those high frequency components of the signal that are not essential to the information being conveyed by our signal. Okay, are we good, students?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for the response. So we take forward this quantization noise. I hope you all recollect what is quantization noise, though it is written, but let me ask Ritesh Parmar. Can you listen, Ritesh? So today I have thought of getting more interaction with you people and getting to know how you are heading towards in digital communication. Okay, so that's why I'm calling your names frequently. Kush Patel, can you listen? Mr. Jay Chopra?
Yes, sir.
Jay, can you first tell what is quantization and what is quantization noise?
Sir, quantization in like if we have many different set of values and we plot some of them like in a smaller set that we call in general term quantization.
Okay, can you, I mean, elaborate it more? I mean,
Like we have a huge data set of some values and we need to plot or map something it so we take some smaller random values, so we term that as quantization, like to quantify something or
okay. Okay, so again, I mean, very correct. But I would request all the students, not in an intention to learn all these things, but to understand all these concepts in their true spirit. So if somebody asks you what is quantization, you can very simply say quantization is the process where the amplitude is discretized. Then you can mention about number of levels which can be possible in a quantized signal. Not all the values they are possible to be achieved. Okay, only in certain fixed levels the signal can achieve value. Good. So good participation. So quantization noise, when you are having some value, signal value, which is occurring between any interval like this. Okay, like this you have these intervals. This is x-axis. Okay, and like this if it is your signal, and at this instant if you take this value or maybe take this particular value, you may like to, based on your logic, you may like to assign this particular level. Okay, so this level has again its own value. So this actual value and this the prescribed level of the signal will have some difference. Okay, so the difference between the actual signal and the quantized value, it becomes a quantizing error. It may be very less, it is very less depending on how many levels we have. So there is a term we call quantizing error, quantization error, and we represent it with Q subscript E, okay, QE. So we all know the step size is twice MP by L. L is the number of levels where our signal varies from minus MP level to MP level. This we are referring to the earlier graph which we have seen, we have discussed in past lectures, and the graph is also visible in notes which I have uploaded. So I have uploaded all the notes, okay, till lecture 3. Today also I'll upload this. So minus MP to MT we divided into L number of levels. So this step, this duration step size is twice of MP divided by L. Okay, so we always know that quantization error will always be varying in this interval. Okay, it cannot be beyond that, because beyond that there is another level, right? So this will be always lying in this interval delta. So we can say the quantization error can lie between minimum minus delta by 2 till delta by 2. This will constitute a delta step size. Okay, it cannot be more than that, it cannot be less than that. So we assume, if we assume that the nature with which this error is happening equally lies, so it is uniformly, equally likely means uniform distribution, uniform distribution or uniform density. Can somebody tell what is the difference between a distribution function and a density function? Anyone would like to give a try? No one? So density functions, they are continuous in nature. Distribution functions, they are from a fixed set of values. So we assume it is equally likely to have, it is means the quantizing error is equally likely to have any value between minus delta by 2 to delta by 2. Okay, so the mean square quantizing error is given by this formula. We represent this with this notation, QE square, mean square quantizing error, MSE, mean square error. In this case, this error is a quantization error. We know from where this error is getting generated. Okay, and this is the standard formula for mean square error, and this value you have to remember. Okay, so QE square comes out to be step size square divided by 12, and if you put this value for delta in this, you will get MP square upon 3L square. Okay, this is important. Okay. Any doubt? Any query? Shall we move forward?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Anna? So what can happen? How your learning can be tested? For example, a signal might be given to you. Okay, any arbitrary signal. You are supposed to find out minus MP to MP. So essentially, you need to find the absolute value of MP. What is the maximum signal level which can be achieved? And then you need to look at number of levels which are there in that graph. And then you may be asked like mean square quantizing error. So it will be very easy if you remember MP square upon 3L square. Okay, are we good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Non-uniform quantization. So I think we have discussed this. Yes, last lecture we have discussed. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me ask. Who is this? Trushil.
Yes, sir.
Sushil, can you tell what is non-uniform quantization and why we should, focus on it? What is the advantage of having a non-uniform quantization? You can say no if you do not recollect. It's okay, so that I can ask someone else. Sushil?
Sir, no.
No? Okay, no problem. Vidit? Vidit, can you listen? Soham Shah? Tanmay Patel.
Don't know, sir.
Tanmay, yes. Tanmay, no idea?
No idea, sir.
You were there in the last lecture, Tanmay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so my advice to all, not only Tanmay, please do revise whatever lectures they are getting finished. I almost upload the same day the lecture PDFs, and will maintain this habit. I think lecture 3 I updated yesterday only. That's so please do revise, and keep your questions ready. You can ask me. Okay. Siddharaj Rathod. Ronak. Saket.
Yes, sir.
Saket, can you tell what is
Sir,
Ronak?
Ronak.
Ronak? Yeah, Ronak, can you tell
Yes.
what is non-uniform quantization? First, tell me, do you remember we have discussed this in the last lecture?
Sir, little bit.
Huh? Sorry?
No, sir.
No? Okay,
No
so
idea about.
what I understand, though we have discussed this last lecture, still, I mean, there is difficulty. We can discuss it one more time, but please, when I ask, no, is it clear? Are we good? Please tell at that moment itself, sir. We have some difficulty. Can you explain it again? Okay, that will help
Okay,
both of us. It's okay to ask even if you ask 2 times, no issues with that. I'll explain 2 times, but feel free to communicate. So non-uniform quantization. In uniform quantization, what we had fixed step size, fixed duration, fixed width, step size. But here you can see in the non-uniform quantization, what is step size? Just go back to the last slide. This delta. Okay, so you can see this intervals, they are so arranged that the step size delta is same for all the levels, for all the steps which are there in your this quantization level scheme. But in non-uniform quantization, we do not have such the case. So as you can see, this step size, let's denote delta 1, is very greater than this step size delta 2. So we have deliberately kept it. We have our intentionally we have kept it. But why? The question should come, why? So based on various statistical analysis of the signals, we find that the signal under consideration has certain characteristics. For example, you may come up with a conclusion that your signal, for example, is lying in the range electrical equivalent, say -4 to 4 volts. Okay, that is the minimum and the maximum. This is minimum and maximum value which the signal can take during its entire presence. Okay, but at the same time, you also observed, based on analysis, that 90% of times, okay, this is some arbitrary situation. Okay, we are assuming some arbitrary analysis. You might come up with a conclusion that 90% of times your signal lying in -4 to 4 volts is actually having value, say -2 volts to 2 volts. Whereas 10% of the times, or 10% of the occasions at which the signal is taking value, they are between -4 to -2 and 2 to 4 volts. Okay, so if the signal is having a value, say -3 volt, it is rarely occurring. Only 10% of times it is happening, or maybe 3.5 volts, 2.5 volts. Since this signal is achieving these set of values very less times, and in the same condition, if we keep uniform step size, what will happen? Our steps which we have dedicated to these values, these set of values, those quantization levels will get wasted, right? They will never be used, or they will be used only 10% of times. Rather than intelligently, what we can do, we can keep smaller step size. Remember, smaller step size, so that we have larger number of steps. If we keep delta small, means in a given this width, we will have large number of steps. Agree, everyone? Yes, please do respond. Somebody please respond.
So can you repeat that last statement once again?
Okay, okay, good. So this is understood that very rarely your signal is achieving these values in this range. Are we clear in that?
Yes, sir. Clear on that.
So when we know that the signal is achieving these levels of value very less, why to allocate levels to such range when those levels are going to be used very rarely? What we can do is, if we allocate less number of levels to these set of values. Now when I say less number of levels, what do I mean? I mean that whatever levels I will have, the difference between any two consecutive levels will be very large. For example, in this case, take this example. Take this example like this. Okay, so what we are observing, this high value, high amplitude signal, it is coming very rare, very seldom it is coming. Majority of time signal is in this range only. So here you can see how many levels are there? 1, 2, 3. In this entire range, we have only 3 levels in this example. Whereas below it, how many levels? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 levels are there. Here also you will have 5 to 6 levels and 2 to 3 levels above that. Now, when we do like this, what we are gaining at, what we are having advantage? The advantage is we are able to provide very good response or very good collection of our signal. Quantizing error will be very less in this range. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And so if we allocate more number of levels, quantization levels to these ranges of values, we will have less quantizing error. Provided and in contrast, if you compare with a uniform quantization, it will be equal, like 1 level, 2 level, 3, then 4, 5, 6, equal levels. So quantization error will increase in this case because majority of time our signal is lying into this range. So a more intelligent scheme is to have a non-uniform quantization, non-uniform step size, so that you have different levels of quantization in different ranges of amplitude. Okay, so if we keep smaller step size, here you can see in this range we have smaller step size. The gap between two levels is very less, but when we keep smaller step size, we have large number of steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or levels, we have large number of levels. And if we assign like this to the 90% of times, we will have less quantizing error. So I hope all agree, large number of steps, or in brackets, small number of step size, small size of steps will lead to smaller quantizing error. Everyone agrees with it?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have this non-uniform quantization. So now we have understood what is non-uniform quantization, what are the advantages of this. Now the next question is, how do we do that? Let me erase. So I'm reading it, whatever it is. This can sorry. So how to achieve this? This can be achieved by first compressing signal samples and then using a uniform quantization. So if we compress our signal, we will see in the next slide what do you mean by compressing a signal. Okay, so let's go to next slide. So this is our compression. So you can see there is a curve like this. Is it a linear curve or non-linear curve?
Non-linear.
Non-linear curve, right? So on the x-axis, as you can see, what do we have? Small x variable, which is nothing but the ratio of m by mp. mp is the peak value, m is the instantaneous value. Okay. On the y-axis, you have output of a circuit which will do the task of compression. So what will be there? No matter these differences are there, okay, like this, the difference, the ratio x m by mp, and if this ratio increases, when will the ratio increase? When the instantaneous value m will increase, means your signal is going into higher amplitude values, right? And this is the peak value. So as soon as this comes near 1, as you can see here, this will occur in this fashion. So if we take different values for this small x and project it on our non-linear curve. What is this curve? This is the characteristics of a compressor. Assume you have a circuit, assume you have a system which will do the task of compression. Okay, and the input which goes to that compressor circuit, no matter what it is, the output will be always in a linear arrangement or uniform arrangement with regards to your input. For example, if you take this point and this point on x-axis, they are very far. Similarly, if you compare this point and this point, you can see this width, this is different. This is larger than this width. Okay, but when you project it on your non-linear curve and see the corresponding output value, whatever points you take, those are uniformly distributed. This level, they are same. We call it as delta y. This is uniformly distributed. So input goes your to the compressor circuit, and the characteristics of compressor circuit is such that it produces a uniform output. Okay, so once we change our input to this, essentially we are we are changing our input characteristics. We are doing it such that if we perform quantization after such performance, we will have non-linear, non-uniform quantization. So as shown in this I/O characteristics of a compressor circuit, the horizontal axis is the normalized input signal m by mp, and the vertical axis is the output signal. Output signal of what? Compressor. Okay. So the compressor maps this input signal increment m into large increment delta y for small input signals. So for small input signals also, delta y is coming as the increment, whereas this increment, okay, in input signal also resulting into same delta y increment in output. Okay, it's like giving more weightage to your lesser amplitude signal, less weightage giving to your higher amplitude signal. Are we good? Okay, I assume it is clear. So the compressor maps your input signal increment m into large increment delta y for small input signals. This is small input signals, and small increments for large input signals. Okay, you can see same delta y response, no matter this is large or this is small. So that is, you are giving weightage to smaller level signals in comparison to higher level signals. Hence, by applying the compressed signal to a uniform quantizer, this is compressor. Now the output of this, which is having equal response to lower and higher amplitude, equal means in terms of the response. Okay, when you feed it to a uniform quantizer, you will have the effect of non-uniform quantization. A given interval delta m will contain a large number of steps or smaller step size when m is small. Okay, so are we good? Any doubt, any query?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you for the response. Now, since this is a non-linear characteristics curve, so there should be some rule or some law, some mathematical equation pertaining to this characteristic curve. So we call that as compression law. Now, in different sides of the continent, you have different laws. Predominantly, there are two laws: micro law or mu law and A law. So we will see both these laws, both these relationships. So compression law that is used in practice in North America and Japan, which is known as mu law, the relationship between output of the compressor Y and the input of the compressor M by MP, or these values is like this. है natural logarithm 1 plus mu M by MP. This is the absolute value, and this natural log 1 plus mu. SGN stands for, will tell, you might have studied it in signals and systems. SGN function. Signum function. Okay, I hope you recollect signum function. Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So signum function m by mp is less than 1. Now mu is a constant value taken appropriately for your system, and signum function is like this. So signum function is like this. Okay, -1, and this is 1. It is like this. It is like this ideal signum function. Next is your A law. So the relationship between output of the compressor Y and the input to the compressor M by MP is like this. Okay, you need to learn it. And general values for these constants mu and A are mentioned here. Please take a note of it. Mu is 255 and A is 87.6. A law is generally used in European systems. Now, you have compressed and then you have compressed your original input signal, and then you have performed uniform quantization, thereby taking advantage of effect of non-uniform quantization. But when you receive it, you have to undo it, because you introduce what? Non-linearity in your signal. So to restore the signal samples to their correct relative value, you need a circuit known as expander. What is expander? Just the reverse of your, or just the complementary function of the compressor. Whatever compression function you are using, the complementary of it is the expansion. So this combination of compression and expansion we call as compending, and these laws, A law and mu law, they are known as compending laws. Are we clear on this, students?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let me take attendance also. Okay. So what should we do? Time is over. Shall we discuss in next lecture? We'll start from encoding, and then we see at least encoding we can see, then we can finish. Okay, so encoding is the last step in your digital conversion of your signal, and it is, I mean, simple concept. Encoder is there. It translates the quantized samples into a unique code number, digital number. The code number is represented in binary sequence using zeros and ones. है ना? So essentially the binary sequence is converted to a sequential string of pulses for transmission. So eventually you will get zeros and ones strings, and those zeros and ones of strings you are transmitting in the form of electrical pulses, okay, across the channel. So this is the effect of encoding. You had your this original analog signal, and you took samples at different times of it, right? This is your empty. These are the sample instants, and the values of which are coming like this. So suppose at this instant, what value is coming? Like this. So you have allocated minus 0.25. Assume you have allocated this value minus 0.25. That is the value which is actually coming. So the nearest level which you assign is minus 0.5 as per your designation of levels. This instant, what is the value? 3.1 it is coming. So you will, your rule of assigning levels is such that you are assigning this level. This is the permissible level. Okay, these all are permissible levels. Minus 3.5, minus 2.5, minus 1.5, up so on till 3.5. These are the permissible values of the signals. Similarly for 1.5 and all these values. Once we get these quantized values, all we need is to represent them with a unique code number. So if we start from the minimum level and assign it numbers in increasing fashion, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 0 till 7. Okay, 8 levels. So for 8 levels, how many bits we require? 3 bits we require. So this pertaining to this minus 0.5. Okay, we are having a code number of 3. So using 3 bits, what is the representation of this 3011? Similarly, 3.5, we can see it is coming to the maximum level 7, and 7 can be represented in binary code with the help with this 111 signal format. Similarly for 101 and this. So this is our encoded binary signal, and this 011 strings we will transmit in the form of electrical pulses across the channel. Okay, I think we stop here, and if any query or any doubt is there, please ask, or else we are good to finish this lecture. Yes, any doubt? No doubts? At least you can say no.
No, sir.
Okay,
No, sir.
in that case, thank you everyone. You may leave.